Welcome back to All the Cars I've Loved Before, your authoritative podcast on automotive nostalgia, where our guests are unique, each auto has an era, and every car tells a story. So you know what time it is. It's time to plug in, get a little grease under our nails, and slip into our favorite car-themed t-shirt, hat, or jacket. Welcome back, everybody, in listener land. I am Dave, here with my faithful friend Doug, and today we're going to talk to a wonderful guest, but first, we need to see what's going on in our own lives. I honestly don't really have much to share in news, but I know that Doug has some stuff that he wants to share with our listeners, and for that, I want to pass it on to Doug. Hello, Doug. Welcome back to our podcast. How are you doing, friend?
I'm doing great. Great to be back here with you on this. Depending on when people are listening to it, it's November and it's cold. Cold in Maryland.
Yes, it is cold in
Yeah.
Maryland.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
colder elsewhere. So I think what's new, couple things. So we just had that episode, and I had the pleasure of having Driving Ivan review, because he lives in Maryland, review my DeLorean, and I got to go along with him and kind of see his process for how he did videos. And he's got a production background, so his videos are really good. But he does it all with a phone. He edits it in Adobe Premiere, and that's it. So if you want to find the video, and I do make a cameo, it's on Driving Ivan's page, youtube.com/@DrivingIvan, DrivingIvan. And for what it's worth, Driving Ivan's episode, we're going to need about 5 more because the guy owns 29 cars. Maybe it's down to 28 right now. He has several for sale. We'll put them on our website.
There you go. Yeah, we'll plug the car sales and get Ivan some business. But I would have loved to be there myself just to see how I love how stuff works. It's half the reason I got into cars. I love to know how things work, and to see someone that's had success in the YouTube world and see how they do things in the background would have been amazing for me. So I'm a little jealous, but I'm also super stoked that you got to show off your DeLorean, because I know that you love showing off your DeLorean.
I do.
So it was mutually beneficial. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited. Sadly, I haven't got to watch it yet, but I'm going to watch it. Life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
And apparently we have an update from Christina's Garage that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Just want to share one of our past guests, past interviewees, has not been published yet, Christina. And she has Christina's Garage, Gearhead and Training. So I bought a sticker, kind of my holiday present for somebody, from her website. And she sent me this awesome sticker. And she sent me this handwritten note just thanking me. And, we're all contributing, helping her with her refinish her late father's 69 Camaro, which was going to be a father-daughter project. She's continuing it. And Christina was great. So I can't wait to get that episode out. But for now, on YouTube, Christina's Garage, Gearhead and Training.
I was along for that interview, and it was great to talk to Christina. So I can't wait for our listeners to hear that story, because I really enjoyed her story. She was an awesome guest to talk to. But yeah, and it's awesome that she takes the time to write these notes for people, which is great. And then one other thing we mentioned before we get into our beautiful guest today is download locations. We wanted to talk about our download locations.
Yeah. So as my phone wakes up, because I was so smart, I turned off my phone so it wouldn't interrupt us. And of course, it kind of interrupted me. So, and now it's choosing to update. So the locations I recall were Ontario, Turkey, and a country I was not familiar with, not that I would know, Abuja, hopefully I'm saying it right, which is in the central part of Nigeria within the Federal Capital Territory, or FCT. So that's a new one for us. Hope you enjoy the podcast, everyone.
Well, welcome to all our listeners that are in our other countries. I'm so happy to hear that we are literally reaching corners of the world that we've never really even heard of. That's exciting for me. But without further ado, I wanted a lot of things we want to talk about together. But at the same time, I want to know, how did he come in our virtual garage, as we used to see, or like to say? And I also want to just say thank you, Matt, for joining us. And Matt, hi, welcome.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, guys.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us, Matt. And, to answer your question, Dave, as the podcast has gained popularity, we have been lucky enough to be approached by, I guess I would call them publicists, podcast publicists, company publicists, who are trying to book a guest, if you will. And so Matt, luckily, is our guest. Matt has a bunch of great car stories, and what he's going to talk about is
That's where Towlos started. That was the birthplace of Towlos, was in Chicago. And this picture right behind me is my C7 Corvette on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, right by Lake Michigan. So currently living in Denver, Colorado. I have the best wife in the world, and this is where she grew up. So that's what brought us to Denver. And then I have 3 little kids, 8, 6, and 4. Great. It's a cool kind of age for them. We're out of baby country.
Mhm.
And so it's been a fun time kind of for a dad. They still like me most of the time. So it's been good. But yeah, I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training. I have kind of lived all over the country with undergrad, medical school, and then residency and fellowship training. So that's allowed me to see many places in the U.S., which has always been fun. You guys mentioned that you're in Maryland. Are you both in Maryland, Dave and Doug?
Yeah,
yes.
we are.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're on Eastern time zone.
Correct.
I'm on Mountain time. And so I worked as an orthopedic surgeon for 10 years after training, and then took a very unconventional pivot into starting a tech company called Towlos, Towlos, about 4 years ago. So there's a lot of overlap with cars, and so we can get into that in whatever angle that you guys want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here rather, because these are these stories that we hear about from people that come from all walks of life. But one thing that we seem to all have in common is we at least have one car story, let alone more, but also that the car cultures around the different, areas of the country are awesome to hear from. And of course, like you said, Chicago is known for their car culture, but you wouldn't think Colorado would. I'm sure there is, like a genre of car that seems to be popular in your area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could point. I don't know enough to probably point to one particular type of car. I mean, I was just really impressed with just the enthusiasm. There are just tons of car shows around here, everything. Let's see, if I had to pick one, I mean, let's be honest, I get a small sliver of the actual, car culture. So I guess I'll just tell you what I'm exposed to, which is a bunch of Porsche buddies. So I've just become friends with a bunch of guys who I don't personally own a Porsche. That might be I'm kind of a wannabe Porsche driver, but I have a bunch of buddies who love their Porsches, and I've gotten to drive a bunch of their cars, and everything from kind of the newer gen, Porsches, all the way down through the 993s, the 964s, the 930. I have a good buddy who has a really cool 930 turbo.
Nice.
That's a fire-breathing dragon. And so it seemed, but I mean, I've friends with several. I have a couple buddies who have F40s around here, and a bunch of supercars. One of my buddies has an F40 and F50 and one of those new Ferrari Daytona SP3s, I think, I mean, so I expect this in LA or Miami or Chicago or something. I just didn't expect that kind of talent in Denver. And the other thing I love about this group that I've kind of gotten to know recently is they drive these cars, they work on these cars. I know how to drive. I have quite a bit of experience on the track, and I also know how to wrench a bit, and that's one of the things I know you guys love, and so I think that maybe that's helped my cause a bit. But I was really impressed with, and I have to kind of shout out for anybody that's that are listening in. I really have. That's been a.
If you ingratiate yourself with that crowd, you are going to inevitably buy a Porsche, because the more you're going to be around them, the more you're going to want one. And then the more you want one, your friends find out, the next
It's
thing they're going to be
contagious.
saying,
Mhm.
yeah, well, they're going to see one that you might not have seen yet and be like, hey, Matt, look at this over here. And regardless,
They keep
gonna
telling
end up
me
with
like,
this.
"Hey, these things only appreciate." I'm like, "Well, yes, you are right." So you're exactly right,
Yeah.
Dave.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's funny you guys mentioned Porsches, because just last night I was watching somebody who's driving up in the mountains, maybe in California, and he went from a Miata set up for the track to a Cayman and rented a Boxster. I think it was 2020 on Turo last time I was in San Diego. It was a fun time, but it had the 4-cylinder, just not my thing. Flat six is the way to go. Yeah.
Mhm.
But Matt, here's a question. Your friend with the 930, do you know what the nickname of the 930 was?
The Widowmaker, baby.
Yep. Yeah, and tell everybody why. I'm glad you know that.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, you'll correct me, is that I mean, what is it? Was it a 3.6? It's got to be something around about a 3.6 liter, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think between
Three.
3.0 and 3.3
Okay,
when it came out.
okay. This one, I think his, if I think his is like maybe an 85. If that sounds
So
right.
the 4-speed.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Exactly. And then, is that it has that big turbo on it that just takes forever to spool up. And then once that
Mhm.
power hits at whatever 5,000 RPMs, then it just really goes. And so by the time that hits, I think that's, I guess, why that car has been dangerous, because it's a little bit unpredictable when that boost hits you and you're not
You better
ready
hold
for
on to
it.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're spinning
Yep.
around. Yep.
Yeah, especially with the weight in the back and the weight
Uh-huh.
transfer. Yeah, just imagine being in a turn. I mean, those old 911s, if you're pushing it and you lift off the gas in a corner, it just a little bit, it could spin right around.
Yeah. Which is so weird because that's your temptation, is to come off the gas, or it's
Mhm.
like until, and that's what initiates that weight transfer. Yeah. So yeah, the isn't is it kind of the famous, it's the whale tail is kind of the famous one, but then
Yep.
my buddy was calling, the one he has is called, what do you call it, like a T table or a T, it's very similar, but it's like, I
Mhm.
guess it technically it's like, and you should look up somebody should fact check us on the real name, but it was almost like a
I think it's a
o
day.
Olalde or something,
Yep.
we'll
Yep.
think, but
He's
that
out
was,
in he's out in Chicago,
yeah,
actually.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I really enjoyed listening to that, which was not that was a pretty recent episode that you guys did with Adam,
Yep.
and it was just kinda cool to hear his story and the traction that they've gotten, and they've, yeah, they started in Chicago, and I mean, it resonated with me because that was really I think that was my first time ever driving on a track, and he talks about this, which is lowering those barriers of entry, to kind of everyday average Joes like you and me onto a track. And I love the way, and one of my good buddies, who was one of the lead instructors with Extreme, his name is Cal. He's in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta now, but you know, he took us into the classroom, and then he really kind of gave us the confidence, both kind of in the classroom and then when we went out onto the track for that first time. He was I really credit him a lot with giving us the confidence of being able to late brake and be on the gas. I mean, pushing cars way harder than I ever kind of realized was
Mhm.
possible. That was, I mean, that was really cool kind of hearing Adam's story just recently.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
had such a commanding
Adam as a
I actually
entrepreneur as well. Sorry
yeah.
Mhm.
sorry, Dave.
No, 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 you're fine. I really enjoyed listening to that because you can almost hear him giving instruction behind the wheel because he had one of those calm demeanors. So I wasn't in on the interview for that one, but I'm a fan of our podcast too, so I listened and I enjoyed listening to his recount of the stories, and you can just hear, you can hear that calm, like just he wouldn't be one of those pressure guys that if he was giving you instruction, you wouldn't be like overly intimidated. You'd almost like want to make him proud. Does that make sense?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Like, not so much a football coach, but more of a, you know, a calm father or something. Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah. More of a, well, we'll think of a good analogy, but yeah, and I mean, as you guys know, I mean, that's important as a track instructor, is to be able to kind of both be assertive, but then also calm. And so there's that kind of that combination, which is probably much more effective than somebody who's kind of panicking, right? So
Yeah.
I give a lot of credit to all those instructors that throw themselves into the right seat, and then, people with no track experience are out there, and there's no pedals where they are. They have to
No.
control the car through someone else's hands and feet.
Yeah, and almost through mentality, right? It has to be
Mhm.
in that mindset. Well, that brings us up to the next part. I'm gonna throw you into Doug's time machine so we can go back, and we love to ask everybody about their origin story and their first car. So let's go 88 miles an hour and let's talk about your first car.
Do we have to talk about my very first car? Does it
Well,
have to be
it's
my very first? Does it be my most memorable?
well, at least if the first one wasn't the most memorable, just for
I'll
curiosity's
mention
sake.
it. My
Yeah,
very first
exactly.
car was a Chevy S10.
Okay.
but it was brown, and I think it had like a 2.5 liter. I think it was an inline 4-cylinder,
Yeah,
probably
the Iron Duke,
underpowered.
that's what they used to call it.
Really?
So many cars had that engine, Jeeps, Fieros, yeah, you name it, that was a
All
popular
across the
engine.
GM line, probably?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, and they sold it to Jeep. AMC was buying it,
Hmm.
Wranglers had it for a long time. Yep. The Iron Duke.
Iron Duke.
Yeah.
Is that right? It wasn't a 2.5 liter? Does that sound
Yep,
right?
yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. So quickly got rid of that one and then got into another car, which was not still, this was not a big step up, but it was my grandma's Toyota Celica that I bought from her. That
Okay.
was kind of a fun car, and that was, I think, again, it was the GT, so it was not the what's the famous Toyota Celica of that era? It was like the GTS.
CTS.
Yeah.
Yep,
So it
yep,
wasn't the
got it.
GTS, but a car. Yeah. And I was proud that my grandma owned it before me.
Yeah, that's a
Did
cool
your
grandma.
grandma I was gonna say, my grandma's never had Toyota Celicas. Did your grandma buy it new, or did
She
she
did.
have it? Oh,
Uh-huh.
wow.
Yeah, she bought it new.
So you were
Mhm.
second owner.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it was a 1985, and I don't think I had it until 1997, 98, something like that. So, it's 13 years old, but of course it was probably had maybe 11,000 miles on it or something by the time.
Yeah. Sounds like my mom's current car.
Yeah, 1,000 miles a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it was pretty cherry, and since you mentioned the S10, I think in your intake form, you told us that was your most hated car and you had a experience with it, and since we've been talking about weight transfer and all these other things and cold weather, Chicago, if you could share with the listeners.
Oh, yes, with that S10,
Yeah.
this is the typical, there's no weight in the back, and I was in Ohio, and of course, I think we went on this hour-long drive, and then by the time we turned around and we're heading back home, a storm came in, and so now the roads were dry when you were driving outbound, and now
Mhm.
you're heading back, and so now it's like the roads are getting, kind of slippery. Not too bad, but then over a bridge, there was just no traction. And so, yeah, I totally did a 180 you could see people that were not in S10, so just regular trucks or cars that were kind of just on the side of the road. And so just a matter of trying to miss them. But yep, that was kind of my first real experience with, what do they say? Bridges ice faster than the roads, or
Yeah.
icy when
Yep.
cold or something. So, yep,
Bridges
that
ice
was
first.
yes, that was a
Yeah.
lived experience. Fortunately, went 180, so going backwards down the road, but that was about it, and then just kinda hugged the guardrail, just kinda going backwards, and so there was a couple scrapes over on my left driver's side, but, I mean, pretty unscathed, really. So,
Yep.
It definitely could have been worse then.
yeah, we were very fortunate that we didn't hit them.
So I'm guessing it's safe to assume that that's not what your introduction to orthopedic surgery was then?
No,
Is
nope, not yet. Uh-huh.
Thank God, right?
Yep, thank
Right.
goodness. I was thinking the same thing, but
No.
Yeah,
thank
right?
thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, then, and a lot of people don't put into context that even if it can still be above freezing in bridges, because of the air that's moving below it, it doesn't carry the same warmth that the regular road surface does, so they can freeze so fast. But yeah, do you think that spin out gave you any kind of respect for physics that you keep in mind when you drive today?
Absolutely. Exactly. Especially if I drive a Widowmaker.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, now that we've talked about cars, what was that drive and that factor that got you into vehicles in the first place?
Yeah, credit goes to my dad. We grew up pretty poor, so we never really had vehicles that were nice. So it was more of just kind of we lived vicariously through a couple friends who maybe had some nicer cars, or maybe we just kind of talked or dreamed about them. But I mean, I remember learning how to drive when I think I was 11, and I would just drive. We were living in South Carolina at the time, and we kind of go off these back roads, kind of private roads, not public roads, and then I'd learned to drive my dad's '73 Datsun. It was a manual, so you have to learn, had to learn the third pedal, and that was kind of where I learned to drive. But certainly my love for cars and my love just for things mechanical. And Dave, you mentioned how you love learning how things work. I mean, I love understanding the process just as much as the finished product, and sometimes almost more. And whether that's a car, or I also love architecture and design. And so I love walking and seeing buildings. I do some real estate development also. And so I love to see buildings that are kind of in progress. Certainly the finished product is also is nice, but I think you have such more appreciation for what the car kind of went through, or what the home went through, or what the building went through when you're a part of the process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what you're saying, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. So I see in here that you've mentioned the Corvette. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And do you
Still own it. It's sitting behind me. For those who are watching on YouTube, you probably could see it. It's a C7 Corvette 2018. And so the story here is, this was, many people could probably relate. It's 2020, so we all know what the world is
Oh, yeah.
experiencing here.
Oh, yeah.
And I am like kind of freaking out. We're living in Chicago. We live on the 33rd floor of a
Oh, yeah.
condo
You're
in
really locked
Chicago.
up.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And so we were just it was just a kind of a mess. And so I'm just kind of getting anxious, and I started kind of thinking like, okay, we're jumping around a little bit here, so I'll have to fill in the audience with my story, I guess, a little bit. But by this time I'm an orthopedic surgeon, been working for, if it was 2020, for about 8 years, 9 years. And so, kind of into the career a little bit, and I thought, you know what? It's time for me to get a sports car. I had had some Audis and some other nice cars before, but never really a sports car. And so I had a couple criteria. I guess maybe I had 4 criteria. One, it needed to be a naturally aspirated engine, because we all know that those are we're not going to be able to know how to say naturally aspirated here in about 5 or 10 years. It needed a manual gearbox. My price point, it was somewhere maybe between, let's call it 40,000 up to 80,000. So certainly some
That's
of
a
those,
wide range.
yeah,
Yep.
fairly wide range, but also not 100, 120, 200. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't get, some of these GT3s that I kind of maybe drooled over. That just was out of my price range. If the car, because there's one of my other good buddies here in Denver drives a 997 GT3 RS, which is kind of the last, isn't that one of the last analog manual with them, still have the Mesger engine?
So,
I
yeah,
think so.
4-liter.
Yeah, 3.8. I think his is a 3.8.
Yep.
I think the very last one was a 4.0.
4.
Um,
Correct. Yep.
but his is I think it's a 3.8 manual GT3 RS 997.2. What a machine. So that was out of my price range. I mean, all those cars were out of my price range, right? So, but those were my criteria. And so I started looking around. You mentioned a Cayman. I was looking at some of these mid-engine cars. Those looked awesome. I've never been a Corvette guy before, and so I was looking at Mustangs, Caymans, Corvettes. What else would fall into that criteria, guys? Oh, the fourth criteria is I was kind of leaning towards like a 2010 car or newer. I wasn't, looking to get an 85 or a 95 or something. So something was relatively newer, because I thought I don't know if I would daily drive it, but something that had some creature comforts in it. So I don't know if you guys
you
can
had
think of other
plans to
cars.
track as well?
No.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I
Okay.
didn't.
Okay. That
No,
comes
so
later. Perfect.
that came later. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So daily driver, something fun to get
Yeah.
around in,
Or
right?
maybe not a daily driver, but something that would
Yeah.
just kind of be, you could, have a little bit of spirited driving and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have some fun out in the country. And so, I mean, I just kind of landed on this Grand Sport, the C7 Grand Sport. So for people who don't know, the Grand Sports are kind of that in-between model for the Corvettes, where they still have the same naturally aspirated power unit. There's no forced induction, but then they have some of the upgraded aero and tires and suspension that the Z06s have. So there's a little bit of that kind of that hybrid. And that's what I ended up with. Not because I'm been a Corvette guy for a long time, but I kind of came across this one at the price point was pretty good, and bought the car. I think it had about 3,500 miles on it, so basically new.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think 3 years old maybe, and
Barely broke in.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And I got it right before. Remember when all those prices just started going crazy? I mean, I think they've all kind of come back
The
down.
used car
But
market went crazy.
it went nuts for about
Yeah.
year, 18 months,
About
2
18
years?
months, 2
Yeah.
years. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. During COVID. Yeah. Because just getting a car
Yes.
was hard
I mean,
enough.
everybody else was experiencing the same. I mean, they were all having the same anxious feelings that I have, and I just happened
Yeah.
to pull the trigger a little bit before the madness. But yeah, so I got that car, guys, with never really any intention of tracking it, even though I had done a little bit of tracking with Extreme Experience, but that, taking your own car to the track, I think was just really intimidating. And so it wasn't until you always need a buddy, right? You always have to have a buddy. You got to have an enabler. And my buddy his name was Trent. And so met this guy, Trent. He had a Corvette. He just had a C7 Stingray, so kind of that, the base model. But he was a former oval track racer. So he had done a little bit of professional racing on oval tracks as a teenager in early 20s. And so he was, familiar with just, how to slide cars around. And so he's like, "Hey, have you ever tracked your car? Would you ever want to?" And I was like, "No, that doesn't, I mean, it sounds awesome, but I don't think I could ever do it." And he's like, "Hey, we're going to Road America, in a couple months. You should come with us. We'll swap out your brake fluid, and then you're basically like set to go. You just need to get a helmet, So that was my entrance into driving on track.
I wish there was more stuff to do like that in Maryland. There's not a lot around here.
Really?
But I hear, yeah. And I don't have any cars that would be qualified for a track because all of my vehicles are either old and decrepit or slow and silly. But at the same time, I would borrow my brother-in-law's Porsche. He's got a 718.
Box.
Yeah. The latest, I think it's a 20. He bought it new. It was a 23, and he barely drives it, and I would just go steal the keys from that.
Man, that's a great car.
Yeah.
That's a great chassis, mid-engine. Oh, man, that'd be...
Yeah.
So we want to get to the heart of our story here with you, and we want to talk about this massive shift in your life. You spent, a decade or so, as you said, as an orthopedic surgeon. Sorry. How did we get to Towlos? I don't want to say it wrong.
Yeah.
You said it right, man. Yeah, Towlos. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Towlos. So I started with that Corvette. We were, my buddies and I, this is obviously a street car. It's not a race car. So we could drive our cars to the racetrack, and we did. We drove that to Road America, which was about 2 hours away. And then we just caught the bug. So then we were like, all right, we would love to get to Mid-Ohio, get to NCM, get to VIR, get to Daytona, get to Road Atlanta, all these iconic tracks that you just are 5 to 15 hours away. And so that was where, like, okay, that doesn't make sense. We don't want to put all the miles on the car. We don't want to, we didn't want to risk getting stranded there if something broke and then just not being able to get back. And so we were like, okay, let's just rent a car hauler. We knew that U-Haul didn't have the right type of trailer that we needed. We were looking for a double car hauler because my buddy had an F450, so very capable truck that could basically, they can haul a mountain. And so we were looking for a double car hauler, one whose fenders were low enough so you could open the doors over the top, right? And so we were looking for the right tool for the job, and we just couldn't find one. We couldn't find one to rent, and it was a little bit of a surprise for us because, like, this is 2021, and this should be a thing, and we couldn't find one. So we bought a double car hauler, triple axle double car hauler, big old steel trailer, and that was kind of our solution. And then so we had one trailer problem number one, which is, hey, we can't find the right trailer to rent to help us have the fun that we want to have. And now we backed ourselves into another problem, and trailer problem number two, which is now we have an asset. We have a trailer that we know we won't use all the time. We'll use it 4 or 5, 6 weekends a year, and then it's going to sit the rest of the time. And so that's when that concept of a two-sided marketplace kind of entered my head. And we kind of thought about, is there a way that we could serve two different populations and provide value to do two different customer sets? One, providing the right trailer at the right exact time to basically help people. One of our mottos is, we're just here to help people have more fun with trailers. And then on the other side is to give these folks who maybe didn't even realize they were an entrepreneur, give them an opportunity to monetize an asset that they already own. And so,
understood.
So, that's the whole Airbnb, or you mentioned Turo, that's, we patterned a lot of our design and our peer-to-peer marketplace platform after Turo. So you'll see if you jump on Towlos.com, and if you've ever used Turo before, it'll look and feel a bit like Turo.
Yep. That was exactly what I thought, but I didn't want to say it. because
Really
I know there's a lot of original rent from your neighbors, transparent pricing, any trailer for any need. And, the big thing, like you said, you got a trailer sitting, use it, make some money.
at least help somebody else get to where they're going, right? That's
Right.
the whole point is you were in that rock and a hard place of you want to get your car from point A to point B. You can't find what you need, and now you're opening up that market for the people that were in your position, but also bringing this resource to everybody. That the person who owns the
Yeah.
trailer gets to make some money. The person who needs the trailer gets where they need to be. I mean, it's a wonderful
Yeah.
idea.
And it's
Yeah,
definitely underserved, I'm
Yeah.
sure. That's a great idea. And just looking, if I may, at your site, like browse trailers by type, car hauler, dump, enclosed, horse trailer. These are things I wouldn't have thought of. Utility trailer, gooseneck, toy hauler, boat trailer,
Mhm.
and the list goes on and on. Little trailer. That's
Wow.
cool. So
Yeah, so
an
our
RV trailer.
and that's we do offer the RV trailers, but that's not really our focus. There are a couple
Hmm.
other peer-to-peer marketplaces. Outdoorsy and RV Share are probably the two biggest peer-to-peer marketplaces that really are in the kind of the camper and travel trailer world. We tend to focus on more of those utility trailers, the car haulers, the enclosed trailers, the dump trailers, horse trailers, boat trailers. That's been kind of that's the emerging market for us. We've been able to start to reimagine the way that those types of trailers are rented. And we now have trailers in, I think, every state in the US. And so it's been a really cool journey. And like a little bit like Adam with Extreme is that, he was decreasing the barriers, decreasing the friction for people like you and me to kind of get a really a supercar onto the track. We see ourselves as doing exactly kind of what Dave was saying, was like you're offering opportunity to people who just never before had just maybe even thought of it. They never before had that opportunity, because it was like, well, I have a sports car, I have a race car, and this gets out into, like people who are looking to pick up cars that don't run, your old grandpa's
Yeah.
old Mustang.
Yep.
It doesn't run. It won't really fit on a U-Haul hauler. How do I go get it? And so now people can just jump on Towlos. You find a car hauler that has a winch. A lot of our haulers have winches, and you can winch it up on there, and it just, what we found is that at the end of it's about the connection. It's about the community. It's about humans. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love doing these podcasts is, I'm getting to know you two guys I've never met. You get a chance to kind of get a window into my world. And at the end of it, it's about the connections, the human connections that we make. And if Tolos can help foster that with trailers, then I think we're really onto something. So it's been really challenging. I would say it's tougher than medical school, and the reason is because there's just no guarantee of success at the end. So it has
Mhm.
taken, I tell people that I've got a degree in a grit and a major in grit and a minor in fulfillment or something.
Mhm.
So but it's been a really really cool journey, and we see, I mean, this is a pretty fascinating time to be in kind of the technology space, especially with this AI revolution. And I think it'll be interesting to look back on this time in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and
Yeah.
to see, I mean, I personally think a couple kind of big bets that we're kind of making that, and we'll see if things pan out. But I think things are going to look a lot different. What do you guys think? I mean, you guys think, in what ways do you think things will be different kind of in our worlds in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, for me, I feel like as much as I use AI to help me in my daily life, I almost feel like it's making people a little dumber. I know that sounds terrible to
I
say,
think you're right,
especially
man.
Yeah.
I've experienced that.
we don't use our problem solving skills anymore. That kind of sucks. But for the outcome of different other things, though, I think it's gonna be that double-edged sword where we're gonna have a lot of things that's gonna help us, but there's gonna be a lot of things that kind of hurt us. But and I just wanted to make a mention of a quote that you said, "If you do nothing, you guarantee the outcome," which I think is beautiful, honestly. But yeah, and my one question that pops up, and we're gonna slowly guide our podcast to the off ramp here. I have to ask for my own personal curiosity, but I'm sure our listeners are gonna want to know, what's the weirdest thing you've seen listed on the platform?
Man.
Yeah, good
'Cause
question.
if you've spent any time on Airbnb or any of those, you rent kind of platforms, you see some crazy stuff. Got to be something weird that's come across your platform.
Yeah, we get a chance to kind of vet all the trailers that are listed, and a few of them, and I have a team that does most of that vetting these days. But when I was doing it a couple years ago, a couple cool things, like one that I saw not too long ago was this. It is a trailer, but it's out in Napa, California, and it's all kind of decked out for for like, I think it's like a mobile bridal suite or something like that. And, it's like a for where the bride and her bridesmaids can kind of get ready or something.
Gotcha,
It's kind of
gotcha.
cool. Wow.
Out in the wine country. I
Yes,
thought you were gonna say
exactly.
it was a mobile booze cruise, but I guess kind of that too.
Well, there's some of those also.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then you
yeah.
got your barbecue trailers, your specialty barbecue trailers that, you can kind of
Oh,
roast the
yeah.
spit,
The
with
smokers,
the
yeah,
rotisserie and the smokers. Yeah. So
yeah.
people have, it is amazing. You're right, Dave, how people find their way onto, different. And I mean, I love that. I mean, that's one of the things, I mean, I'm pretty biased. I think we live in the greatest country in the world, but I think we have all varying degrees of that entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's part of the American spirit. And so I love seeing how people they have a craft, they have a skill, they have a smoker that's on wheels, and they find ways to put it on Tolos. They just find it.
For the AI thing, and I think, Matt, you have young kids. I have a daughter in college, and I have a son who's 14 in 8th
Okay.
grade. I think it's gonna change education, and, certainly there's the bad part, but I was kinda pondering this with a friend probably several months ago, and I just talked to him today, so it reminded me. But if you think about the kid that could be falling behind in school, or is not keeping up, but they're also too shy to raise their hand. They don't want to be that. I think AI's got a good market there for helping those students not fall behind, right? And I mean, you were in higher education, obviously, for quite some time. You probably were in school for about 10 years, right? But,
14.
they're for, I should have given you I should have said 12 and I would have been closer, but yeah, 14.
14 years after high school.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I just see that as helping kids get over something where they might get left behind. I also see it as, an enhancement to Google, if you will. And that's what I like using it for, to be honest. It's like the best web navigator on the web.
But I think you're right. There's actually a company here based out of Denver that is doing that in education, in leveraging AI. And what's cool is that they can not only do it for English speaking kids, but the way that large language models, can pretty quickly translate into different languages. This technology then can be quickly applied to other third world countries where they don't have good teachers. I mean, we're fortunate to have pretty good teachers, human teachers here, but there's a lot of places across there's a lack of resources. And so I think we're going to see some real impacts, especially, probably even more so outside the United States on the effect of educating and providing more, maybe not totally personalized, Doug, but a more custom kind of educational set, I think, because it can kind of stand some different needs and it can adapt. You got one teacher with 20 kids. Well, AI, in some ways, it could be 20 teachers for each, for 20 kids, so there could be
Yeah.
more of an
Yeah, the
individualized
multiplier effect.
treatment
Yeah.
plan. Mhm.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
wanted
No,
to
that's
touch
a
on
great
something
point.
that Dave said
Yeah.
earlier, which is, I think there is this temptation to become dumber. And so one of the things I encourage my team, and I'll encourage all of our listeners, is use AI every day. I mean, I'm a techno optimist. So of course I'm going to say use AI every day, but it can be used in a good way. It can be a bit of a crutch, but I would encourage those of us to go ahead and use AI, but just be careful not to harness the power of it, and let it sharpen your critical thinking skills. And I think that'll serve you well.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. And yeah, I agree. Like, just keep digging into it. Ask it
Hmm.
question.
Be
That's where it's
be
helped me.
curious.
Yep.
Mhm.
Just keep going deeper on the prompts. Don't just take it for granted and, I move on.
Yeah, because it's garbage in, garbage out. It's gonna be it's a different type of garbage.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm one of those nerds that fact check my AI too, because I'll ask it questions I already know the answer to, and to see like how close are you going to get to this, and like I'll ask it, and then I'll correct it. I talk to AI like it's a person sometimes, especially when I'm doing the voice thing. I use the voice thing a lot when I'm in the kitchen because I'll be like, okay, what's my next step for this recipe, and I make it talk to me while I'm working with my hands.
Nice.
But it's things like that. Like, oh, well, because I want to be old school to the point where I want to learn because I'm always curious, right? But I also don't want to rely on something to give me the answer. I want to know how to get to the answer, not what the answer is. Does that make sense?
Well, especially if that answer is wrong. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that you're kind of fact checking it and you're understanding its degree of hallucination because it's out there. So no, I think you're exactly right. I keep doing that. Don't give that up because you certainly don't want to get the wrong answer.
Right. Yeah, well, I love your outtake on helping individuals because of its ability to learn. I personally don't have kids, so I don't think about it in that aspect of helping a future generation of my own. But I do. I guess you brought another kind of perspective into my mind where it can be more of a benefit if we use it correctly. So I appreciate that from you, and I know that Doug has the same feeling where he wants it to be used. He wants you to be utilized, but not relied on.
Well said.
Yeah.
And that's how any good tool is used.
Right.
It's used for a specific purpose, even just like a specific car hauler, right? We can bring it back to Towlos. I mean, you're using the right tool for the job, not some U-Haul hauler that's meant to haul a Toyota Camry,
Exactly. And it enables all those barn find people that we know. A good friend of the show, Andrew, who I don't know how many cars he has, but
he doesn't even know how many cars he has.
That's
hilarious.
right. He does. And
I guess that's a good problem.
Yeah. Well, maybe
it's good
if
to
he
be
needs
his friend.
to make some space, he can free up some cars. He can rent a Towlos trailer, move those cars out, make some space for the next car, rent a Towlos trailer, bring it in.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we always ask this question. Everybody has the opportunity to answer before we wrap this up. Is what is your dream car, Matt?
Haha, man. Can I list more than one or do I have to just pick one?
If you could try to narrow it
down. Okay. Give me a second here. So I'm not going to answer your question very well. So I'm going to be circuitous here. So I love art. We love modern art, contemporary art. Some of it's really weird and abstract. And so you need to know the story behind it. I personally love automotive art. And so as I've learned a little bit, and I'll be honest, I still don't know a ton about some of these brands, but Pagani comes to mind when you see the design. I mean, even if this car is stationary and you see it in some different lights, and you see the shadows. I mean, I would say just the pure design is art. And then you start to kind of fire it up and you see that. Have you guys seen I don't know if it's just the new one or if he's designed it with a couple of the old ones, but you can actually see the mechanical linkages on the gear shift, right? And just you can actually, I mean, it's almost like seeing the other side of the watch, seeing that timepiece and you see all the movements within the timepiece, but I mean, there's art within. This is mechanical art. This is art in motion. So I guess I'll say I'm a fan of the Pagani because I see an artist and his medium happens to be a vehicle.
Yeah.
Well said.
And
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a Pagani that wasn't gorgeous. You know what I mean? When they're not moving.
And the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look at them and you're just like, wow,
it's a piece of art. Car. I mean, it's no wonder that those things are $200 million or $2 million. But I think the reason is because there's just such care, attention to detail. It truly is a piece of art. It just happens to be made of, titanium and carbon and all those other components rather than a canvas.
Me being me, if I was going to spend $2 million on something, I'd want it to be something tangible that I could actually, use, if that makes sense, because you're going to drive it, you're going to use it. Then I would be to buy a canvas that somebody put, paint on and I'm going to hang it up and I'm going to admire it. But whereas if I'm going to spend $2 million, I want to touch it.
Right. You want to experience it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you want to be like they talk about immersive experiences or something, right? This is an example of an immersive experience. You can actually be inside this piece of art and you can
Yeah.
feel the G-force. So it's so much more than just a visual. This is, there's so it's multi-sensory, and so to being able to experience art. I mean, that happens with the 930 Turbo. You can get that's a piece of art and you get
Yeah,
inside that
it
thing and you
is.
feel the mechanical, the analog, the gear shifts and then you wait for that turbo lag to kick in. That's a piece of art in a different way, and you get to actually experience that. So
that was a great answer. I wasn't expecting the
It
Pagani
was.
answer. Yeah.
Did
So that being said, Matt, where can people find Towlos if they need to haul their car home? Where are we finding you?
yeah, just go to Towlos.com, Towlos.com. We know that about 85% of our users are on their phones. So we've made the website mobile friendly, and then we're going to be actually building a mobile app probably in Q2 of 2026. But right now it's pretty easy to use on your phone. You can book a trailer in your pajamas. So
That's
excellent.
awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us the story. Thank you for creating something that's going to allow people to move their work of art.
move
Be
what
it
matters most.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could be from anything from the old 86 Cutlass, like we talked about
Yeah.
pre-recording, to, that in a trailer. You're affording them the opportunity to not have to go buy a trailer. And for that, I appreciate
And
you.
store it, right?
And story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Store it.
Yeah.
Store it
Story.
away.
Well, it's been a
Doug?
real pleasure.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
been great to talk with you guys, and this has been a real pleasure for me. Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure for us too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to mention before we close this up and finish it off, Doug?
Yeah, super excited to have Matt on. I know he's been in the queue for a while, yeah, Matt, you didn't disappoint, and you gave me some ideas about how to get my next barn find home because I don't have a trailer, and if I did, I wouldn't have a place to keep it because it would keep me from storing up more cars. So
Yeah.
we got to keep
Exactly.
that
Everybody
valuable
has to have their
space.
car and their trailer
Yeah,
is, that's just like that's one of the things
yeah,
we love about it actually is that we get to serve. We don't, we're not beholden to just a particular brand. So even people from Porsche guys to BMW guys to Pagani guys, they all
hmm
those guys need a trailer. And then we're also not constrained to a particular industry. So we love how we can we're obviously talking cars because we're car guys and we're kind of geeks, but there's this entire equestrian world. I have some buddies, I don't know if you do, that do rock crawling out in Moab, and they're not driving their Jeeps across the country; they're hauling them. So it's cool. It's like it does kind of decrease the barrier to allow people to have a lot more fun and just kind of a lot of different areas, including going to get that barn find. So go for it, Doug.
yeah.
You'll have to let me know if
It's
you need anything. If you need any help with it, we'd love to help you. So
yeah.
please look me up. Anybody can email me at matt@tolos.com, matt@tolos. And you should certainly do that, Doug, if you have any trouble. We're here for you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Matt. I can see that happening in 2026. Not too far away.
It's the running joke is like, you always you got a guy, you know what I mean? Like somebody comes to me like, we got a guy. And we're like, hey, reach out to Matt at Tolos.com. Your trailer rentals made simple, right? It's right in the quote. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for coming back. If you're just finding us, tell a friend, tell a relative, leave us a like, leave us a comment. If you want to reach out to us directly, Doug at carslove.com. I have my own new Cars Loved email. I am Dave at carslove.com. Reach out to us. Tell us where you're coming from, where you're listening from, how you found us. And that was Matt. And you can find him at tolos.com. Reach out to him and his wonderful company, Tolos Trailer Rentals Made Simple. And you guys, thank you for joining us. You just heard the high revving, low mileage, late model heard around the world authoritative podcast on automotive nostalgia. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.